good.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's meeting. We'll call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum present, so first thing on our agenda is invocation by Councilmember Kirkendall.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we humbly come before you this evening with thanks for the many blessings, Lord, that you provided for us in this town we call Clinton. We can't thank you for everything that's so great that you've done, but we do give thanks for your glory. And we ask you, Lord, that as we make decisions upon this town, that you guide our thoughts and our minds, that we do the will of God and do the will of citizens for this town. For us in Christ, and we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, as I understand, we don't have anyone signed up? Okay. Okay, so the next thing on our agenda is approval of minutes from September the 8th council meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Have a motion from Mr. Cook,
Second.
second from Ms. Williams, I think, first. Any corrections, changes that we need to make? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And minutes are approved. Okay. Our next item on the agenda is for considering the following proclamations. The first is the first Friday in November, November the 7th, proclaim it as Arbor Day in the city of Clinton. The second is proclaim October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the city of Clinton. And item C is October the 5th through the 11th as Public Power Week in the city of Clinton. And I'll entertain a motion to proclaim all three.
So,
All right, I have a motion from Ms. Walsh, second from Mr. Kirkendall. Any questions or comments?
Question,
Yes, ma'am.
for October the 5th through the 11th, is there anything special that we do for Public Power Week? Or is that just, what is Public Power Week?
Well, we haven't had anything planned for the last couple of years to do this. Michelle is pushing out information over Facebook and our website for Public Power Week. It's, we get information from time to time from APPA about what public power is, how we handle it, how many members are in the United States are public power providers. There's 21 public power providers in South Carolina. So she will be pushing out that type of information on our Facebook page during that week.
Okay, and then for breast cancer, do we do anything? I know that's typically a lot of individual organizations do. Do the city do anything for breast cancer month?
We have not.
We do the proclamation.
Just the
Yeah,
proclamation.
mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, if not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no, and we are so proclaimed. Okay, Mr. Meadows.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Item number 7 on our agenda tonight is for council to consider board appointments to the Planning Commission. I identified several weeks ago 4 members of the Planning Commission whose terms were coming to an end. 2 of those completed their term September the 20th, One would complete their term on October the 11th, and then one commissioner is completing her first term, and she would be allowed to serve a second term if so approved.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a
Yes, sir.
motion concerning this, if it's in proper order. Okay. I'd like for council to consider a 12-month extension of our current planning commission, because they're in the middle of doing the comprehensive plan that needs to be brought back to the city as well as to council for final approval. But I think they've done a lot of hard work at this point in time, and to switch gears or switch membership, and they have to do a lot. It's not really fair to the new ones coming on or to the ones going off when they're right in the middle. So I'd like to make a recommendation. We continue for a 12-month period of time the current planning commission as in place now.
And I would like to second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We'll entertain questions or comments. I'll say that, I like to stay with the, with our standard procedures, but this is covered in our ordinance. If we've got something going on like comprehensive plan, so I think this fits well within that. And it's certainly something we need to get completed, and this group has worked hard on it.
So when is the comprehensive plan due?
Go ahead, Joey was talking
We
about it.
expect to have it completed within the next 12 months. They've begun work on it. I think, Phil, they've completed the first draft of the first 5 chapters, so they'll be working on some more. Once that's completed, it has to come to council for approval, and we will also push it out to the public for public comment. So we felt like within 12 months, we could get that completed.
Also, I would like to ask, when was this put in place that there was a time that a board member could serve? Because I recall serving for 7 years on the design review board. So when did we put in place, was that something that council did, or was that something that the city manager put in place, that there was a 2-year term? Because I've never known that. When was this put in place?
I'm not sure exactly when it was put in place, but it is within our city ordinance governing the boards and commissions that we have. The planning commission is allowed to serve 2 3-year terms. We have one commission that's allowed to serve 2 years, and another one that's allowed to serve 5 years. So I think the BZA is 5 years, the DRB is 2 years, and 3 years for the planning commission. And that's in city ordinance.
And that's been there for a long time. As far as I can remember back, and I only go back to '96, but it's been in there that long. Some years they didn't have any interest in people doing it, and some years we have. So if it's good if we can stay within the ordinance, but in this particular situation, as we're going through this comprehensive plan, I think this is very appropriate to extend it to get that done.
Would that then change the terms of whoever, to keep it on a cycle? Would that shorten the next term of?
No, the next term would, for those that will be rotating off in 12 months, whoever replaces them will replace them for a period of 3 years, just like there is now. They get an additional year. Current members that are rotating off have to be off the board for at least 1 year before they can apply to be back on. So with that 3-year period, say if I were on the board and I was extended for 12 months, I would have to wait a year before I could reapply. But if the ward that I'm in, somebody was currently serving that 3-year period, it would be an additional 2 years before they could reapply again. So they would serve that. If somebody stepped down or for some reason was no longer a member of the board and they were in the ward that I served, then they could reapply after 1 year.
I just really appreciate the ones that do volunteer, because they are volunteering their time. They're actually going through mandatory training, which is not mandatory for council to go through training, but mandatory for these people on this board to go through training, and they do this of their own time and dedication and devotion to the city, and willing to serve. That's the part there that is so impressive to me, that they're willing to serve.
Absolutely.
To stay.
Well,
And we've got a lot more people who have asked to serve too,
we
so
had,
it'll,
you know, in your packet, I included all the applications that we received. So there was quite a few that are willing to serve, and we will revisit this in 12 months.
Can I
Okay.
ask one more question? With
Sure.
those that you're saying that are willing to serve, would it be feasible for them to start going through their training before they get on the board, since they're willing to serve on the board? Why don't they go through because what is it, a six hours or 12 hours in some, that they go ahead and get the training so that when they come on the board, they are fully trained?
Well, they would have to agree to take training prior to being elected to the board, but at that point, who's to say that they would be elected at that time?
you probably have to change the ordinance too, I would think.
You know, we
To address
we
that.
will, you know, when that period is up and we start working on this process again, I can get with Mr. Lindler, and as soon as they come on their first planning commission meeting, hopefully we can have some training provided for them at that meeting.
So just to be clear, this is a year extension for everyone?
No, ma'am. It'll be a year extension for Willie Prickett, Robbie Strickland, and Ford Tarver. And then Heather Tiller will be allowed to serve another year, which she's just completed her first term, so she has 3 years.
Well, does that need to be a separate vote then?
No, she can serve out her 3-year period.
Okay. That doesn't have to, but that doesn't have to be a separate appointment vote?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
I've got some very good people around me that can answer those questions, and we will make sure that.
I just would
is
like for that to
answered.
be in proper order.
Yes.
Are we extending each of the 3 members' terms by 12 months, or we're saying
Right.
tonight from 12 months from tonight, or what?
From
Yes,
tonight.
12 months from today.
So for each of them, even though their terms aren't
Yes, sir.
exactly, okay.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no.
No.
The ayes have it. Thank you.
Item 8 on our agenda tonight is for approval of ATAX committee funding recommendations for 25-26. And I believe Ms. Kay Addison is here to present those to you.
Thank you. I'm chair of the ATAX committee, and for those of you who are new may not know what ATAX is, but it's an accommodations tax that comes from our hotels, bed and breakfast, Airbnbs, and then the money comes back to the city of Clinton through the state. The city of Clinton is allowed to keep a portion of that money, but some of that money has to go to nonprofits to promote tourism in the city of Clinton. So that's our job, is to go through the applications, make sure they're qualified, and then make a recommendation to you as to how that money is to be dispersed. This year, we had $77,466.92 to be able to be given out to these organizations. There were 7 applications, and the first thing we did was to go through and decide that all of them qualified to be considered. And then we took that money and we started, you know, as you do in your own home, you start taking money from it till you get down to the bottom. So the last one I'm going to tell you about is a very odd number, but it cleans the slate. And Carl will tell you, I had a real hard time with this because I'm OCD about numbers. I was willing to put in another extra little money myself to make it round out, but we couldn't do that. But the recommendation from our committee is that Clinton Canopy get $2,500, the YMCA $15,000, the Lawrence County Community Theater $10,000, Musgrove Mill State Park $15,000, Presbyterian College for it's a family weekend event that they're going to be hosting, $5,000, and then Lawrence County Rev 250, $5,000, and the last one is Main Street, and we gave them everything that was left over, which was $24,966.92. So that is our recommendation to the council.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Addison. We have a recommendation from the ATAX committee. I'll entertain a motion to accept that recommendation.
So moved.
Have a motion from Mr. Kirkendall. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Smith. Any questions or comments?
So with the application, it was only 7 people that applied for this?
7 applications.
So is this public that people are aware, and then the qualification, what are the qualification to apply for this?
Well, it has to be tourism related. It can't be like spent on things, for instance, like T-shirts for our theater group. Can't be spent on something like that. It has to be something that's tourism related. It can be a permanent. For like the Y, they've been working on their fields, because I think they're going to work with you when the recreation fields open up, and they're going to be having things at both places, so they're working very hard to get those up to date. And then Musgrove State Park, they're doing renovations out there, so it's really tourism based. Can be marketing, anything like that. There's lots of little things that go into this. So
And they
there
have
can
to be nonprofit,
infrastructure.
right?
There can be infrastructure as long as it pertains to permanent for the city benefit.
And when is the date to apply for this?
Well, do you remember what the date was?
We opened that up in mid-August, or beginning of August, and closed it mid-September.
Right, it goes for about a month. It's advertised in the newspapers, advertised on social media, and they have the application, they fill it out, they send it in, and we've had less before, we've had more before. We did discuss in the meeting about how we could improve on that next year. So our goal is to meet before the applications go out, go over the application process, then send the applications out, and hopefully that'll improve on people being more informed about it. Because I don't really think some people understand what the parameters are of applying, and so
Right.
they're scared to apply, maybe.
To apply for it, okay. Thank you so much for
You're welcome.
explaining
Anything
that.
else?
Any other questions or comments? Okay, if not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Addison.
Number 9 on the agenda tonight is first reading of an ordinance number 2025-009-001, amending the business license ordinance for the city of Clinton to update the class schedule as required by Act 176 of 2020. The city is required by that act to, of course, update our business license code. The Standardization Act requires that by December 31st of every odd year that we review this and pass an ordinance to update it per Act 176.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation from staff to have first reading of this ordinance to update the business license schedule as required by Act 176. I'll entertain a motion if that's the will of council.
So moved.
Have a motion from Ms. Walsh,
Second.
second from Mr. Cook. Questions or comments?
Question, a business license is for, because the ones that have business and stuff here, that's what this is relating to, right?
Yes, ma'am. Any business
Isn't-
operating in Clinton must have a business license.
Okay, so when you say any that's operating, what type of business? Does that include someone setting up a selling something on the side of the road, are they required to have a business license?
There are some requirements for those. I'm not 100% versed on what someone that was, say, gonna have a yard sale would have to do. But any retail business in the city, barbershops, beauty shops, restaurants, and those would have to have that business license to operate.
Okay.
I will get you an answer on the question that you just asked regarding a business that sets up on the side of the road.
Right, because we have several that
Yes, ma'am.
sit up on the side of the road, so are they required, when they're selling appliances? I can understand with the yard sales, but when they selling appliances and stuff that they're constantly doing this every Saturday, are they required to have a business license to do this?
Yes, they are, Ms. Williams. They are required to have a business license.
Okay, so we need to check with the Mr. Rice, that does this every Saturday on, what is that, Carolina?
Yeah.
On Carolina, that he sets up every Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And the motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 10 on our agenda tonight, I am requesting that we table this until the November meeting. The description that we put out on the agenda does not match the ordinance that was put forth, so we're going to get that corrected and take that up at our November meeting.
Okay, so we'll table item number 10. You can move on to 11.
Do we need to take?
Make a motion that we vote on it?
Sure.
I move that we table that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Just a motion from Ms. Walsh, second from Ms. Williams. Questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And we are tabled.
Item number 11, council to consider first reading of an ordinance number 2025-009-003, amending the zoning designation of property within the city of Clinton consisting of 43.9 acres, more or less, located on the southwest side of Commerce Avenue, being identified as Lawrence County Tax Map numbers 901-35-01-003 and Tax Map number 901-35-01-012 and other matters related thereto. We have had Coastal Precast Systems make an application for this to be changed. Coastal Precast is going to move here and begin some industrial work there and produce precast concrete beams for bridges and that type of thing. So currently those properties are zoned C3 and I1. The proposed zoning for this site would be I2, which will allow for a higher, the height of the structures need to be 2 feet higher than I1 or C3. Either one would allow. So we're asking that council agree to the zoning to I2.
Okay.
These parcels.
All right, we have the recommendation from staff to rezone from C3 to I2. And I'll entertain a motion from council.
So moved.
Have a motion from Mr. Smith, second from Mr. Kirkendall. Questions or comments? And one question I'd have is, how many jobs will this bring?
100,
100
in the
jobs.
neighborhood of 100.
Okay.
And where is this located again?
It's down behind the old Pilot gas station, kind of across
Out
the road
56, past Blue Ocean,
out 56.
down on the right.
Okay,
And if you remember where the Lawrence County Transfer Station was there. It's property directly, across, Commerce.
Where the trash dump was, out there back behind the pilot.
It's behind the pallet.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's behind the pallet, that doesn't,
It's
Is that-
adjacent to I-26. Back in there, that property is shown on the map, that's included in your packet.
well, I was thinking about the housing that's on back that road. What is that what's the name of that road? Barrel State, State Road,
No,
is that?
It's back, closer to I-26 than Barrow State Road is.
Okay, so it's not gonna interfere with, I mean, as for, you said this is a, what kind of business?
It's a precast concrete business. They make, concrete beams for bridges and different types of structures.
So that's how many acres? 43?
43.9.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments?
So a public hearing didn't have to be had for this? Is that, I'm just asking.
I don't think
You saying yes?
I believe there was one, planning commission meeting. It should be in the ordinance.
Planning commission recommended.
this came from the planning
This did
commission,
come
so
from
they
planning
had
commission.
September 9th.
they had a public
So they
hearing.
had a public hearing on that? Okay.
Okay.
The current, if I understand correctly, what they want to do hasn't changed and it's allowed in the current zoning. It's just to allow the building to be 2 feet higher.
Higher, that's correct.
Is there any possibility of their growing more than what we see here?
I have not heard any additional, but, hope they will.
Well, we do know that we have a lot of bridges in the state of South Carolina that need to be updated, so they ought to have a lot of work.
Take up, pretty much the full 43.9 acres with the buildings and yard that they will have to store those beams on once they're constructed and before they're shipped.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Good news.
That's right. If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no, and the motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 12. I'm going to ask that we table this one also. It needs to be done by ordinance instead of by amendment.
Okay. Please, could we have a motion to table this, number 12?
Number
Have a
12.
motion to table.
Second.
From Ms. Walsh, second from Mr. Smith.
Question, I thought we've already, I mean, is the sale not already,
This is an amendment to
Amendment
it
to
that
the
we've
sale.
got to,
Yes, we have already done the original sale.
Yeah.
This was for 4.55 acres that was not included in the original sale.
so we're tabling this?
We're tabling this until we can get the ordinance together to present it to you in November.
Wait, is it improper to ask a question on this since we're tabling it, or can we
ahead
ask
and
a question? Because I guess I wanted clarification of what was published, stating that ARC had already given the city $50,000, is that correct?
The escrow was done, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what was stated was that they could at any time, for whatever reason, they can pull and say, hey, we decide we're not going to do this, give us our $50,000 back. That's what was published for the public to see, but that's not what not what I understood, was that it had to be a specific reason that they would buy out. They can buy out for any reason if they decide to say, well, hey, we're not coming to Clinton, we're going to go to Greenwood. They can get that $50,000 back, because this is what was published, and that's, and a lot of people have been commenting on that because they're saying this is what the city said. The city stated that they can get their money back for whatever reason.
Yeah, so normally there, in a contract like that, especially a commercial real estate contract, there's a due diligence period. So the buyer can do their own investigations as to the title, environmental, there's certain things that they can investigate. And during that time, they're able to cancel the contract. If they find something that they did not anticipate, they could cancel and receive their earnest money back. So they're not penalized during that time period. Now, if they go past that time period, there's a point where that earnest money becomes hard, but that's a very standard provision in a contract like that.
Yeah, I understand if they go and they find something, a graveyard or whatever, but my question and what was posted to the public was that they could withdraw for any reason if they decide they want to go to Greenwood instead of Clinton.
Yeah, well, and I don't have the contract in front of me, but most of the time, the due diligence period leaves that very open to the developer or the buyer in this case to, you know, decide during that time period whether they want to continue forward or not.
Okay, because that
Okay.
wasn't what I understood.
All right,
That-
well, we're voting right now, though, to table.
table it.
Yeah, so we probably need to move ahead with that. So, any other questions about tabling this till we get it back?
I would make a motion to table, but I would like clarification.
We've already
Okay.
got the motion and the second, we were in
Okay.
the, so
So what we doing?
we're gonna vote right now.
Okay, but can we get clarification on that 50,000? Sure. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no, and we are tabled.
Okay.
Item number 13 on your agenda tonight is fire contract and agreement between Lawrence, the County of Lawrence and the City of Clinton. This is something pretty standard that we do every year with Lawrence County. Right after I took the position of city manager, the fire chief and I visited with the interim county administrator and the county legal representative and talked over this contract and requested additional funds, but at that point, it was kind of too late in the process. They were working on their budget. So we're going to get an amount of $371,773 this year. 50% of the appropriations will be January the 15th, and the remainder, 25% on April 15th, and the remainder on June the 15th. So prior to February 15th of next year, Fire Chief Marshall and I are going to visit them again and request additional funds over and above what they gave us this year. So we budgeted $371,000 in our budget this year, so we actually going to receive $773 more than we budgeted. So that's where we are.
Okay, so we have the recommendation from staff. We're just voting to agree to the contract,
Yes,
fire
sir.
contract. So,
Yes, sir.
okay, we have recommendation from the staff to approve the fire contract with the county, between the city and the county, and I'll entertain a motion if that's the will of council.
So moved.
Have a motion from Ms. Walsh, second from Mr. Kirkendall. Are there questions or comments?
Can you explain that a little bit more? That's the city and the county.
Yes, ma'am. The city of Clinton provides fire service on a 5-mile radius outside of the city limits. So Lawrence County pays us this money every year to provide that service to those residences and businesses that are outside the corporate city limits of Clinton, but within that 5-mile radius.
Okay. So that include, when you're saying the 5 miles radius, that would include like Apple Orchard?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So with them not having fire hydrants out there, and I know this may be, how do we handle that?
Tank truck, pump truck. Our fire trucks can carry a certain amount of water. Each one has different capacities, and we also have a tanker that we can dispatch in those times of need.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, one question, and it's too late this year, but in the conversations for next year, 6C, we go 6.5 months without receiving anything.
Yes, sir.
And that needs to be adjusted. I mean, we've got expenses during that first 6.5 months, and I think that needs to be reviewed and looked at in addition to the request for additional funding. Instead of waiting until January 15th to even get that first 50% allocation. If we, anything better on a quarterly basis, like we do the other two payments.
All right.
So we have a little bit of money.
We will make that in our request.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And the motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 14 is resolution number 2024-009-005 for a resolution for sewer installation on the recreation complex property. The Monty Dutton and his family have agreed to sell property for Dutton Farms, which is adjacent to the recreation complex. So they're going to have to cross the recreation complex property in order to tie into the sewer line that runs along the creek on the backside of that property. So we're asking for approval of the resolution to allow them to cross that property. And then as, excuse me, as soon as that installation is put in correctly for the development and the tie-in of the sewer line, the city will take it over as normal operation and maintenance of their sewer. So that's something that's fairly standard with what we do. We're just asking that we go ahead and grant them the approval to cross that property and make that tie-in when the time comes.
And that will be beneficial to the city for having sewer capacity on that side.
Because there's a portion of the recreation complex property that will take advantage of that sewer line being where it is.
Okay, we have the recommendation from staff to consider a resolution for sewer installation on the recreation complex property in cooperation with the Dutton property. I'll entertain a motion if that's the will of council. Have a motion from Ms. Walsh.
Second.
Second from Ms. Cogsdale. Any questions or comments?
Question, so who's gonna be paying for that?
The developer.
The developer be paying for this sewage, for the connect?
Yes, ma'am. The developer always puts in the infrastructure for water and sewer, and now electric, and they will be responsible for the payment of the tie-in of their system into the city system.
But is that typically, I'm just asking, is that typically common for them to do that? Do they not,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
mean, other developer, do they tie in, they're not?
Every development that's going on in town right now, Clinton Commons, Springdale Towns, Shell Creek, the D.R. Horton Stone Creek development, they all put in all their infrastructure and it is paid for by the developer. And each one of them have access to tap city sewer lines, and they make that tap, and it's all at the expense of the developer. Does not cost the city a dime for that. Water or sewer.
Water or sewage?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Are these, is this line going to be away from the recreational fields and things?
Yes, sir. If you can look at the map that's shown here, that green, bluish green line there or with the property is a creek that goes through there. And it follows right along that creek.
Yeah, bluish green.
Bluish green.
Okay. Has everybody seen it?
No, I don't see it. I may have messed up here. Let me see the front of your construction. Oh, this right here. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
So this is not gonna cause any cost on the city at all
No, ma'am.
whatsoever?
No, ma'am.
All right. We ready? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. And motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 15 is approval of a resolution number 2025-009-004, authorizing and approving the acceptance of certain loan assistance monies from the South Carolina Water Quality Revolving Fund Authority. Over the last couple of years, we've heard a lot about PFAS and what EPA is doing with PFAS regulations. So we are doing a study of what it would cost us to put equipment at our filter plant in order to remove PFAS from the water. So the state revolving fund is offering us a grant or a loan with principal forgiveness. So we're going to receive from them an amount, I believe it's $321,000 to conduct this study, and it will be at no cost to the city. I just have to have a resolution approved so we can proceed with the paperwork to get this done.
Okay, we have the recommendation from staff to approve a resolution authorizing and approval the acceptance of this loan from the South Carolina Water Quality Revolving Fund Authority for our study on PFAS, which are the forever chemicals. We've talked about that before, and with the chemicals that don't go away, and we got EPA is making us do something. So this will help us with this study.
So does the city have to put in any money with this?
We will eventually have to put in some money for this, but this is just paying for the study by our engineers to see what it's going to take to put in our treatment plant to remove these chemicals, what options we have.
Okay, so we've got the recommendation to accept this money to help us with this study, so I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Have a motion from Ms. Walsh, second from Mr. Kirkendall. Any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no, and the motion carries. Thank you.
That includes all of our action items for tonight. Item number 16, we are going to have a presentation from Mr. Lawrence Flynn with Hope Flynn. You're all familiar with Mr. Flynn, and he's going to speak to us about fee in lieu of taxes, economic development incentives, and the Bailey deal.
And we thought this would be good for for me especially, because we hear stuff like fee in lieu of taxes and the Bailey bill, and it's good to get a little refresher on that. And Mr. Flynn has been sitting patiently, and nodding his head. He loves this stuff. Thank you for being here, Lawrence.
Do you have a copy of my presentation? I have some slides. We can put them up, or we can just kind of walk through it. Y'all tell me which you prefer.
Well, I can get it, son.
We can certainly circulate it around. So, guys, I think at a really, really high level, so the conversation with the Arc Development Group kind of started off a larger conversation around what the role of the city in participating in incentivizing and providing incentives that feather the nest for new development to occur in your community. And so it's something that you have to kind of think about really strategically, because as we recognize, the city only has finite resources that it has available to do the things that you want to historically do. You've got, you know what your core functions are of running a city, you know, is to keep, you know, perform the life, health, and safety mechanisms that you've always done. So picking up trash, making sure that you're running fire call, making sure you're running police call, all the things that otherwise exist. And that's kind of the baseline standard for how a city should operate, and it's based on this kind of underlying principle of public purpose. Public purpose being all of those things that are necessary for a city to do that are part and parcel to someone paying property taxes or business license fees or water and sewer revenues that you run for all the services that you provide. But as South Carolina has continued to grow, we continue to see lots and lots of new development coming into the communities. And, you know, Joe, your manager was rattling off the list of all the developments that you have coming in. People are coming to South Carolina from everywhere. And that means they're coming into Clinton, they're coming into Lawrence County, they're coming into the upstate. And a lot of those developers are coming in with their hands out. And for the longest time, there were a lot of cities that were really hard up for growth. And they said, yeah, let's figure out what we can do to incentivize and induce these developers to make some of these investments in our community because they weren't naturally coming in. And so the thing that you want to ultimately weigh when you're thinking about incentivizing, when we talk about incentivizing, that could be a reduction in taxes, a reduction in fees, some type of special arrangement for the development of property, a sale of property below its fair market value. It means lots of different things to lots of different folks. The issue that we run into a lot of times at the municipal level is we just don't have a lot of tools in the toolbox. And so the thing that I think most of my clients have wrestled with is if someone comes and makes the ask, how do we kind of separate the wheat from the chaff that is, hey, what makes this project viable? What makes this project viable? Why don't we want to be excited about this one? Why don't we want to offer something to this person? And so you're effectively getting into the business of picking winners and losers. And so the things that we started this, actually did the very first version of what I call the Omnibus Economic Development Incentive Policy for the city of Hartsville about 10 years ago. It's because they had a developer that came in, he wanted to build a downtown hotel, he was throwing all kinds of wonderful jazz hands, excitement things at the city. They were buying in, and they would have backed up the Brinks truck to be able to make this happen because it was going to be a kind of a game-changing development for their downtown. And in a lot of ways, it ultimately was. But what we identified really early on was we need to have some thresholds for what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And so the thing that I ask councils to start thinking through, what are the things that you want to potentially incentivize? What types of businesses that you want? If you just simply say, any business that opens up in town and spends $1 million and hires 2 people, you know, that could be, it costs that much money to build a Taco Bell now. And so the idea of trying to figure out how you do as much as you possibly can with the resources that you have, but also identifying the specific things that you're trying to induce. You don't want to have this blanket authorization and someone can build a check into cash and they qualify for some incentives, and so you're giving away the public treasury for something that you haven't identified, you know, particular, justifiable, objective standards for how they may qualify for incentives. So the first thing I always tell folks is let's identify what it is that you're trying to do. And it may be you say, look, we don't want more residential development in our community. You know, we want a Chick-fil-A, or we want a Publix to come into town, or we want these very specific types of commercial amenities that are the only things that we're looking to incentivize. And hey, by the way, we don't need another hotel on the interstate. We need one in town. We need one that is on our downtown corridor. Or we want to make sure that folks are particular about reinvesting in the Main Street corridor because we have a bunch of vacant storefronts downtown. We don't really care what happens on the interstate interchange. And those are things that you get to decide as council, is to identify what you want, where you want it to go, and what the thresholds are that you would be willing to identify to potentially make an investment more valuable to that development. Because at the end of the day, the other issue we run to is you can't directly evade property taxes. You don't have the legal authority to do so. You do have some flexibility on business license adjustments because you obviously set the business license ordinance, and there's some flexibility built into the new statute that Joey alluded to earlier that y'all have now passed the new rate schedule for, that gives you some flexibility to negotiate on business license. There's also some things around utility rates and charges, which obviously y'all are the major utility provider in this area of Lawrence County. And as a result of that, that gives you some flexibility. But the thing you also then have to balance that against is to say, okay, if we're going to create an incentive package where we want to develop a new hotel or we want to develop a new restaurant, you're then incentivizing someone coming in from off to put in an investment in your community that theoretically is, or very logically is going to compete against existing ancestral businesses in your community. And so you're taking their tax dollars or you're taking their ratepayer funded revenues and deploying them to someone who's going to actively come in and compete with someone who may be a long-time taxpayer in your community. That's something that you ultimately have to wrestle with and decide if it's something that you want to pursue. But that's the race that is economic development, is not just doing it because Danny has a friend that's coming into town and says, hey, I want to do this. We want to be able to have some objective standards and say, look, we've identified that this is a growth corridor that we need. We have downtown that we want to be redeveloped. And if you put a $5 million investment in our downtown, we'll consider you for a business license abatement at 50% for 5 years. And we will also, you'll qualify for some level of credit on your utility bill. You don't have to do any of that. But what we need to start thinking through is what it is that you'd be willing to do and what you'd be willing to do without burdening city staff, city resources, and potentially competing with existing city businesses in whatever it is that you ultimately decide that you're going to do. Because the other problem about economic development, and this is the real risk factor when you're dealing with any of these things, is you don't really know where the line is, right? People are coming here. We recognize that development is coming into this community. If you say, look, we're going to cut your business license by 50% for 5 years to make you come in, or look, this is a way to incentivize you to annex into the city, any of those factors that you ultimately determine, in making that decision, you don't know if they were planning to come in anyways. And so if you just given away 50% of your business license revenue or some type of qualified reimbursement arrangement where this person was going to come and make an investment in your community anyways, and you've just given away the money. Now, you're never going to solve that problem, but at least if you have some objective benchmarks and you've identified, hey, by policy, when anyone comes and knocks on the door, if you can meet these baseline criteria, you then qualify for this grab bag of incentives that the city is willing to offer. And I think if you can do that on an objective, identified, formulaic basis, where anyone that qualifies, what you've identified and set the criteria on, then allows those folks to come in and promote themselves or allow you to promote them for economic development. That's the overriding goal. And so I wanted to kind of put that idea out there, and I think what staff had alluded to is you are getting a lot of those questions, and folks are coming to ask every single day. And look, there are game-changing developments that may come into your community that require a higher level that you say, look, there are always additional factors that we consider that can make this worthwhile to be able to allow for an economic development policy to be further extended. There's state level credits as well for certain historic rehabilitation on historic properties. There are big box retail credits that you can combine with things that you would do as well. So if you had an old Kmart that is vacant, things that you want to do to identify those particular types of assets, you can be as granular as to say, there are 5 pieces of property in the city of Clinton that we've identified that we want to have redeveloped. We're willing to only incentivize the redevelopment of those 5 particular properties, and those are the only things that we're going to consider. Otherwise, don't come ask. And so that's kind of a policy decision that council needs to really wrestle with about what it is that you're trying to do. And I have clients that have said, look, we want as much development to come in as we possibly can. We want to make our community as business friendly as it possibly can be. We want to offer incentives to any person that's willing to come and make an investment here because it shows that we're business friendly and trying to ingratiate ourselves with the business community as best we can. And so as a result, anyone who comes and invests $500,000 in our community is going to qualify. So the pendulums can swing to whatever side you want to. That's the really nice thing about council being a policymaker. You get to decide what that looks like. And then based on whatever it is that y'all decide, you can tell me, I can put it back on paper and we can come back and approve that by ordinance so that you have a toolbox that is the starting off point for when someone comes and knocks on the door and they say, hey, this is what I want. And we can say, well, here's the ordinance. This is what you qualify for. See if you check any of these boxes and you can make a decision whether or not we want to do it. So that's kind of the high level overview of coming up with a policy around how you do economic development. And that doesn't have to, those decisions don't have to get made tonight, but it's something that y'all definitely want to start thinking about because I think those phone calls are coming hot and heavy every single day. And what you just don't want to do is the next time a developer comes along and they say, well, you sold this piece of property for X, why won't you do that for me? And then you don't really have a good justification for it because you say, well, we like this guy, we don't like you. That's not a real great justification for why you're going to make any decision. So if you have objective standards, that's ultimately what we're trying to get to. Taking that step further, there are some particular tools in the toolbox that I think are worth further investigating. So the three things I was kind of tasked with bringing up was, what does an economic development policy look like? And we can give you some examples and some templates and some things that y'all need to kind of think through. I can share that back with staff for y'all to start working through it on a workshop basis. The other one is a multi-county business park, which is a tool that you actually don't have the independent authorization to provide. And then there's also the Bailey bill, and we're going to talk through both of those here in a second if y'all just give me a little grace. So the multi-county business park is an authorization that is given to counties by state law, and it was really done back in the early 80s as a tool to allow counties to induce the development of industrial development in the state. So think BMW. And the concern is that, if y'all may remember, and I know we've gone through some of this analysis before, it all kind of drives down, or it all comes back to basic property tax structures in South Carolina. So if y'all may remember, property taxes in South Carolina are not assessed on the basis of market value. They're assessed on the basis of the usage of the property. So the market value becomes kind of baseline, but then you apply the usage factors for how that property gets used to determine ultimately how it gets taxed. So the example I always like to tell people is, Mayor lives here in town. He lives in his, he buys a new house. He pays $100,000 for the house, and it's his primary residence. And so if it's his personal residence and it's identified as a primary owner-occupied residential structure, it's assessed at 4%. So the assessed value of that $100,000 is $100,000 multiplied by 4%. So the tax value, the assessed value for tax purposes is $4,000. So you just take $100,000 market value, you multiply the assessment ratio by it to come up with the assessed value. If I come into town and I buy the house immediately beside the mayor, and I decide to put a Burger King in it, and I also pay $100,000, we're just going to assume that your zoning code doesn't apply. But I pay $100,000 for that, and I put a Burger King in it. Well, that's a commercial usage, not a primary residential usage. And commercial uses are assessed at 6%. And so could be an identical house to the one the mayor bought, but only because I'm running a Burger King out of mine and the mayor's living in his, which is really nice, Mayor. You have a hamburger anytime you need one.
I think if you make that happen, work it out.
That usage factor is what's ultimately going to be the assessment. So you multiply $100,000 times 6% for the Burger King, and the mayor, only because he's living in his property and it's his personal residence, is his property is worth $4,000. My Burger King is worth $6,000 because it's $100,000 multiplied by 6% to come up with that 6% assessment ratio. So theoretically, the baseline for how we assign property taxes, I'm already paying, or my value is already 50% higher than the mayor's is, only because of the use of my property. Now, if Alan comes in and he says, I'm retiring from the practice of law, and I see all these great houses that are going for sale, I'm gonna buy the other house that's worth $100,000 beside the Burger King, and I'm gonna make widgets there. I'm gonna come and make an industrial manufacturing operation of widgets. Because it's an industrial use, it gets assessed at a 10.5% assessment. So that means that same $100,000 piece of property, just because of the change in use, he pays $100,000 for it, gets assessed at 10.5%. The assessed value is $10,500. So because he's making widgets, I'm making hamburgers, and the mayor is sleeping there, the mayor is effectively paying $4,000. He has an assessed value of $4,000. Alan is paying $10,500. He's paying 2.5 times the value of his property taxes. Now, how does the millage apply to that? So these are the factors that determine how you pay taxes, right? So you have the usage side of it, or the valuation side of the property. And so the type of use that you have dictates how that valuation is determined. But then the city also applies millage, right? And millage is a fancy term, thank you, a fancy term for assigning a credit of value. And so mill in French, for any of our French speakers up there, means 1,000, right? So the way we assess property taxes is based on 1/1,000th of the usage value. So if I take the mayor's $100,000 property, using it at 4%, $4,000 assessed value, one levy mill value against the mayor's property is 4,000 divided by 1,000 is $4. So if you live in a $100,000 house and you assign 1 mill to it as your primary residence, it generates $4. You pay $4 in property taxes. That same 1 mill in my Burger King would be $6, and that same 1 mill on Allen's property would be $10.50. Now the city levies roughly 130 mills of property taxes. And then the school district levies roughly 250 mills of property taxes. And the county puts on roughly 100 mills of property taxes. So generally speaking, when you add all of those millage levies together, you have about 500 mills of property taxes. So in that same example, if we have 500 mills of property taxes assigned against the mayor and his $4,000 piece of property, he would pay $2,000 a year in property taxes. That Burger King would pay $3,000 a year in property taxes. And Allen, I'm trying to do this math off the top of my head here, but Allen would pay roughly $6,500 a year in property taxes. And so you can see the difference in the level of values. The reason that fee in lieu of tax exists is because if you're a BMW manufacturer or you are the concrete pillar manufacturer that y'all zoned into the city tonight, they come in and they pay a really, really high property tax assessment. So legislature said, hey, as they're wont to do, let's not amend the Constitution and change all these assessment ratios. Let's come up with a quirky legislative fix that allows us to wave a magic wand over the property and say it's no longer property tax property, it's fee in lieu of tax property. And when you wave that magic wand over the top of the property and make it fee in lieu of tax property instead of ad valorem tax property, you can maneuver and monkey around with the math and make the numbers move in whatever way you want to. And so that power has been granted to the counties, and so you can create what's known as a multi-county business park. The county creates it by ordinance with a sister county. That ordinance basically puts an overlay, and they can pick any properties they want to in the county to say, this property is now a fee in lieu of tax paying property. We're putting it into this ordinance, and as a result of that, it has all of the benefits that we now get to decide, and we can assign tax abatements to it or fee abatements to it. We can take those revenues and pledge them as specific revenues for debt, or we can grant credits back or share that money as we see fit. The benefit to the city is the county cannot create a multi-county business park within the city limits without your consent. That doesn't apply to the school district. So the city actually has a pretty strong veto right if the county wanted to create a multi-county business park in the city, because they have to get your consent in order to do it. And so there's a case out of Horry County where the Supreme Court said the county gets to manipulate or distribute or change the distribution of the tax revenues as they see fit, so long as all the underlying affected taxing districts receive some portion of the income. So if you had a piece of property that was generating $1 million a year in property taxes, and under your existing structure, the school district is roughly 50% of the tax base. Of that $1 million in a traditional ad valorem property tax paying structure, the school district would get $500,000 of that $1 million. You'd get about $270,000 of that $1 million, and the county would get about $210,000. That's about the way regular math works out. When you put the property into a multi-county business park, the county then gets to dictate how those percentages get distributed. And so there's this case out of Horry County where the court said, no, as long as the school district gets some portion of the revenue, which could be $1, they can distribute it as they see fit. So one of the conversations that we've been having with the county, especially around some of the commercial developments that are popping up and some of the development infrastructure that is being discussed, is potentially putting some of these properties into a multi-county business park created for the benefit of the city of Clinton that you would use as an economic development tool. And where it becomes really, really valuable is where you negotiate that distribution of revenues at a higher level than what your millage would be. So typically you were only going to be able to collect about 27% based on your current millage allocation of the taxes or fees that get collected to that property. But you could theoretically negotiate with the county where they say, hey, I want 50% of the fees. And so that $1 million property we were talking about before, instead of you only getting $270,000, we now get $500,000. You may ask yourself, well, why would the county do that? And the short answer is they're willing to do so. They've done it in some other places to help support localized economic development at the municipal level. It is a very unique thing that Lawrence County is willing to do that. It doesn't happen in a lot of counties across the state. And so with the administration that is currently in place and with the former chair, we've had some conversations back and forth, particular to some of the hotel developments that have been talked about coming into town, is the idea of theoretically manipulating that fee distribution by putting those properties into a multi-county business park, subject to your consent, that you would then be able to negotiate either special source revenue credits, which are tax abatements to that property taxpayer, or using that revenue stream to fund debt service improvements or fund bonded debt improvements, that you would use that revenue stream to make whatever improvements you ultimately decided you want to with that revenue stream. So it's a pretty unique tool that if we can work with the county to be able to make it part of our toolbox, and you identify those parcels that make sense. This is another part of kind of the homework assignment of council going back and saying, hey, you know, those 5 parcels I talked about before that you've identified as being really, really valuable for redevelopment. If you've got a big box Kmart that's sitting empty, it's a commercial assessment. The one thing you can't do with multi-county business park is it can't be used for residential property. That being said, multifamily apartments have a 6% commercial assessment, so that actually works. But if you identify some properties where you say, hey, in our growth quarters, we have some vacant areas, we want to be able to theoretically work with a developer and reduce their property tax assessment, that's a really, really valuable tool, which is basically it happens on every single economic development deal that happens in the state of South Carolina because of that weird high-level assessed value on the assessment for industrial property. But the backside real benefit is you can also use it at the commercial level in the city, and if we can negotiate with the county to give you a higher level of the underlying revenue source, you can deploy those revenues to lots of different purposes that could be beneficial to the city. And so those are some conversations that we've had with the county already, but we didn't want to get too far afield without at least bringing it back to council to let y'all know we're having some of those conversations and to make sure if y'all had particular thoughts around the level of percentage. I think the baseline we had talked about was asking for going from our 27% of the tax base to 50%. We still want to make sure we give some distribution to the school district and to the county, and they seemed amenable to that. So I think that's probably where we start, but there's always room to continue those negotiations as we move forward. But as some of these new developments come along, the multi-county business park tool could be a really, really successful tool to generate additional revenues into the city for new development that's coming into the city. Because y'all are ultimately going to be the service responder for any of those things that are coming into your community. And then the last one is something you actually already have on the books today. It's called the Bailey Bill. And the reason I wanted to go through the analysis of the assessment ratios we talked about before is the Bailey Bills is what it's colloquially known now, but it's actually codified in the statute as the special assessment ratio special tax incentive. And the reason for that is it allows you, if you've identified certain historic properties in your community, and this can apply for both residential and commercial properties, if the applicant comes in and makes application to the city, and this is the way the statute generally works, they come in and make application to the city, and you've adopted the Bailey Bill by ordinance, which the city did. You actually did it back in the early 90s. You may have been one of the earliest to adopt the Bailey Bill, any client that I've seen. Your Bailey Bill is a little bit more restrictive than it probably needs to be, and it's something we can talk about here in a second as well. But the general idea behind it is, if I come in and I buy that the mayor buys his house for $100,000, and it's a historic property in the city of Clinton, but it needs $1 million. Say it needs $900,000 worth of renovation work. And so, he got a steal on the house, and it's really, really fantastic. It's a historic property that's fallen into a pretty significant state of disrepair. What the Bailey Bill allows you to do is to say, okay, the mayor bought it for $100,000, and in a normal circumstance, if you came in and you rehabilitated that property, at the end of the rehabilitation, your property tax assessment gets reset based on whatever value you put back into the property. So if I buy it for $100,000 and I put $900,000 into it, the new value becomes $1 million. And so obviously I'm then paying property taxes on $1 million piece of property. The benefit of the Bailey bill is that you say, okay, hey, I've identified that this is a historic property. I'm going to make application to the city that I'm going to put $900,000 worth of rehabilitation expense into this historic property. And in doing so, I'm going to check all the standards for how the State Departments of History and Archives, acting with your ARB, it would allow me to redevelop that property. And if you check all the boxes that they say you're going to, then you're theoretically allowed to freeze the assessed value at the pre-reconstruction level. So what does that mean? If you qualify, you could keep the value at $50,000 or at $100,000. The mayor's $100,000 house, he keeps it there for a period of up to 20 years. So over time, if you're paying property taxes on a $100,000 assessment as opposed to $1 million assessment, it's a huge, huge savings for folks that would potentially come in and make reinvestment in historical properties in your community.
Does that count for industrial properties as well?
It-
Commercial
It would work
properties?
for commercial properties. There's not a whole lot of historic industrial
Right,
properties
so
out there.
wrong
But yes,
word.
so the Bailey bill works for both residential and commercial structures and can be really, really valuable.
Does that go across owners? The
It
20
does,
years?
it does. So as long as it's done and it's qualified, it works.
Okay.
Two issues that we currently have right now with your Bailey bill. When y'all originally enacted it, you required that at least 40% of the value of property be reinvested back in the property, which is actually not a bad threshold. But you cap the ability of where the assessment can otherwise go. And so you have just kind of a generally unworkable statute. I would assume you have not had a whole bunch of Bailey bill applications because it's not particularly very beneficial. The other problem that you also have is that the county also has the Bailey bill in effect. And there's just an awful AG opinion out there right now, because it should be that both of you have the identical, that you have both you and the city have the ability to lock in that assessed value at the pre-reconstruction value. The county has a more flexible Bailey bill statute that actually allows them to go the entire 20 years, but they have to invest 75% of the underlying value in order to qualify. You are capped, I believe it's at 10 years, is the way it's done. So you have to hit 40% of the reinvestment, but you're only allowed to get it for 10 years. So the problem is you have a statute that does the exact same thing that the county does, but they're different. Constitution says you have to levy taxes on the basis of a uniform assessment. There's a terrible AG opinion out there that says that the city, if you adopt the Bailey bill, it only applies to the in-city property taxes, which doesn't make any sense because you're freezing the value. It should also apply to the county and the school district. So the way we've started working around that is we just have said, okay, we really need to make sure that the city's version of the Bailey bill matches the county version of the Bailey bill. So when that applicant comes in and applies for the property tax credit, they can go through your process and the county's process at the same time. So then they get the benefit of the assessment across city property taxes, county property taxes, and school district property taxes, which then makes it a really, really robust incentive. And so the communities that have seen, a pretty strong result of this, you think of the Beauforts of the world, you think of the Camdens of the world, you think of the Aikens of the world, places that have lots of historic structures in their community. And by the way, the baseline for historic structures is pretty low. It either needs to be on the State Department of Archives list of historical properties, a historical property designation as administered by the city, or it has to be 50 years old.
God, we should have known this when we bought our houses.
Yes, and so, but there are a lot of folks that have put significant money back into the rehabilitation. And so you think about some of the properties in like Rock Hill where the historic cotton mill facility was done. That was done as a Bailey bill property. And it allows them to keep a lot of those historic characteristics that may be more expensive than you would otherwise do, but because you're keeping that underlying value at a much lower benchmark, it's making folks come and do historic qualified rehabilitation in your community. So I would say as another part of kind of the larger thought process around economic development is to think about potentially amending your Bailey bill statute to be a little bit more up to date and at a minimum in concert with the county's version of it, and maybe even having a conversation with the county about how we consolidate those so that they look very similar. Like, so for example, in the city of Columbia, their Bailey Bill statute is identical to Richland County's, and they've now worked out a process with the county where if you apply to the county, you get, and you're in the city, you get the city's benefit. If you get the city's, you automatically get the county's, and so you don't have to go through this kind of attenuated process of trying it multiple times. But the real value there, again, is tied back to the assessed value. So there, I think maybe in kind of closing, I know I've been talking here for a while, so y'all certainly probably have some questions, is to think through, you know, what it is that you want to do from an economic development standpoint, and then based on that, we can put as many tools in the toolbox as we can identify to make it as successful as you can be. So with that, any questions?
Thanks, Lawrence. Any questions? I heard Lawrence do his long version of this at the Advanced
Yeah, that was the short and sweet
Institute
version.
at the MASC Advanced Institute, and so he knows his stuff. So if you got any questions, I think that's a good idea. The coordinating the Bailey Bill with the county, that would be a good thing for.
Sounds like an important topic for a work session. And who would you who would you recommend be at that? Would like Phil, planning, you know, I mean, what entities would be important to have at that discussion?
So, you know, I think at the end of the day, you probably want to have your finance staff, because obviously they're the ones that are going to need to make sure that whatever these incentives that you're going to give away or provide are actually financially viable to the city. Because one of the things that I have struggled with, especially for folks that have a fairly robust utility department, is one easy way to provide incentives is on the utility side. But because capacity has gotten so expensive on a lot of these projects, providing below market costs on utility rates can
Bite you.
potentially catastrophic, which
Yeah.
means that if you're, you know, raising rates in one hand, but you're also cutting breaks to developers on the other, that doesn't play well particularly. So you want to make sure you run the math. I would say certainly dealing with staff, if there's a finance committee of council or there's a economic development related committee of council, that may be a good way to start. But I think it's, you know, it's something that this is kind of a larger policy question, I think, for all of council. And before you even go to the next step of talking to anyone else, I think it's worthwhile to know what council's thoughts are around economic development, kind of at a fundamental level, to say, do we even want to be in the business of trying to promote it? Because we built the growth that we have currently happening, and the idea of potentially promoting more may not make sense. But as all these homeowners, you know, new home communities pop in, that then changes the demographics. Where all of a sudden, Chick-fil-A does start looking in Clinton, and a Starbucks starts looking in Clinton, and a Target starts looking. You know, those are the things that start happening. There are developers at the local level that are ones that are bringing those national retail chains into your community. Anything you can do to sweeten the pot for them to look in your community are things that are beneficial, and you've got to have the tools in the toolbox to be able to make the offer. And so the sooner the better, but I think that ultimately comes down to what it is that you're trying to accomplish through your economic development sense.
Are there ways that we can incentivize, like you just said, local business owners and not offer that to national chains?
Yeah, so the benchmark here that you have to deal with, there's some federal constitutional provisions known as kind of equal protection.
Mm-hmm.
So equal protection is this idea is that you have to treat similarly situated classes of people the same. So you can't discriminate against someone on the basis of identified characteristics without a justifiable reason to do so. So for example, you couldn't pass a policy that says we're only going to allow economic development incentives for men because they run better businesses. That would just be an objectively bad thing to do, and it's hard to justify. But you could say we absolutely have a preference for reinvestment by local businesses, and if you have a footprint in the Lawrence County area, and so you have a meet and greet that's over in the city of Lawrence, and hey, we really like that, and we want it to be in the city of Clinton, and so as a result, you get special consideration, or we lower the thresholds for you to qualify for the incentives that may not otherwise work. So if you said, you know, we identify that we want growth to happen in the downtown corridor, you have to put $1 million in investment in order to qualify for our incentives. But if you're a Lawrence County-based business, you drop that threshold to $500,000. there's lots of different ways that you could do to kind of sweep the pot for a local developer or make it only available to whomever you want to, so long as there is a justifiable reason for doing so.
Have you seen effective ways to incentivize building owners to take action with their building, whether to rent, rehab, or sell?
This is one that lots of folks struggle with. And so especially in some of the communities where they're kind of holding on to, because they think the next great thing is coming through, and so they've just been holding on to it, is to get really robust with your code enforcement. And so that's kind of the harder pressure of saying, hey, you can't have a building that has, screens falling down, and you can't have, chip paint. We're going to make sure that if you're going to keep this building vacant and you're doing it for some long-term, development potential, you're going to at least keep it to the baseline standards that we want to see for purposes of keeping it together. A lot of cities have also said, hey, we know where we want the growth to occur, and we want it to happen kind of in the methodology that we've identified. And so the city will go in and buy some of those buildings as well. You got to be careful. You don't want to condemn them through eminent domain, because there is restrictions on the ultimate use of that property. It has to be retained for governmental purposes at that point. But lots of folks have gotten creative in how you do some of those things to be able to say, hey, let's do a facade improvement grant determination. So I've got a couple of clients that will identify some certain pot in their budget every single year, and they'll say, hey, we have $25,000 that we're going to set aside for facade improvements. And so, like, if you have a building downtown that has an awning that's falling apart, the city will match the first $2,500 of reimbursement. So if it's a $5,000 quote to get the awning replaced, you'll pay $2,500, and they have to match the other $2,500. There are lots of little things like that that I think, again, it's a matter of identifying the things that you see as being issues, and it's being strategic about how you do things to solve those particular problems. I had a client that said, we want a downtown white tablecloth steakhouse to come into our downtown. What can we do to do that? And so we basically sculpted a development policy that said, if you build a restaurant, a retail facility restaurant with entrees that are $20 or more in this building, will effectively give you the building. And that's what they did. And so it's a matter of what resources you actually have. If you have a portfolio of real estate that is worth selling, you can sell it below its fair market value. That's also an incentive, as long as you make the determination that its better use is someone using that property for a purpose that you've identified as being greater to the benefit of your community, and you as council get to determine what those factors are.
Thank you.
But to your point, it's better for us to have those policies and all that in place on the front end.
Correct.
So we don't play this game of
Correct.
A, B, C kind of thing.
So you've identified some justifiable baseline standards that everyone has to adhere to. And then if you got someone that comes and says, hey, I want to build a $100 million hotel downtown, well, that's different. And so, but it's the onesies and twosies where, hey, I want to put a restaurant here, I want to put a boutique here, I want to run a new retail shop here. Those are not going to be they're going to change your community, and probably for the better. Let's create an objective standard that they all apply to, because we've identified those as things that we want to otherwise accomplish.
Any other questions for Mr. Flynn? Lawrence, thank you so much for coming to give us some good stuff to think about and try to pull together.
It's always good to see you.
Oh yeah, and we appreciate you taking your time to be here, so thank you very much. Okay. All right, we've on 17, we're, Mr. Meadows, any report?
Just a couple of brief things here. I mentioned to you last month, and we did a resolution to do a 5% match on the Municipal Association grant. I have submitted that grant for a downtown master plan, and I requested $25,000, so we will hear from that in the next couple of months or so, I hope. Lawrence brought up code enforcement, and, getting a little more stringent on our code enforcement. So I've made a couple of changes over in the building and zoning, which houses our code enforcement. Tim Douglas, who is our code enforcement officer, was kind of splitting time between code enforcement and also doing some inspections for the building and zoning side. Tim is now full-time on code enforcement. And so he will be able to spend more time on that and not have to split his time with the inspection side of it. We already had Tink Barnes on contract to help us out when we needed some help with the building side. So as inspections pick up, we may, have to utilize Tink a little bit more to, keep us up to date on our inspections and not have to have people wait long periods of time for that. So we'll be hearing more from Tim and what he's doing, and he's doing a great job. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, but he's out there every day fighting it, and we'll get this taken care of. And as Ms. Walsh mentioned, work session. Dates, ideas of when you would like to have a work session. I know we're getting into the time of year that we have holidays coming up in November and in December and the first part of January. So just, some ideas that if you would send me some ideas about what you want to cover in these work sessions and when you would like to hold a work session. I'd like to, schedule at least for a couple of hours so, we can get some work done. And, the information that Lawrence brought to us tonight certainly needs to be discussed, and we need to make some decisions there. So I'll leave that up to you all to throw out some dates of when you would like to have it and some possible topics. And, we'll put those topics together and have a good work session and get some things done for the city.
Could you, in preparation for that, or for us giving ideas, the list of our important goals that we created with Charlie Barno?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you send that out to us, like the order?
Yes, I will. I'm actually working on that now.
Because I think that might be, if that was what our priorities were, that would probably be. And I think probably what we just talked about went along with our top priorities.
A good bit of it, yes,
Yeah.
sure. And I will send those out. And I hope to have that plan completed by the end of the month. I'm going to take a week of vacation toward the end of the month, but I'll hopefully have that done. If not, by the end of October, by the end of the first week or so in November, and get that out. I could go ahead and send out the information that
Just
we already have,
just the list,
but
yeah.
to have a plan put together for you to review by the second week in November.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
You mentioned using Mr. Barnes again I thought we had a inspector for the city of Clinton
We
that
do.
was certified.
His
So
name
why-
is Jeff Norwood,
Yeah,
and with all of the houses and things that we have coming into town right now, and we have a massive amount of inspections we have to conduct each month for people moving in and out of rental property, apartments, even homes. So we have to go and do a property maintenance inspection on all of that property every time the name of the account holder changes for the utilities. We inspect that property just to make sure that we're not allowing somebody to move in property that's not safe and up to code. So we have quite a number of inspections that they do every week, and it adds up. So there are times with all of the new stuff that's coming on that we need to have some additional help there.
So was that in the budget to use a contractor outside of the city? Was that?
He was
And I
already,
would-
he was already.
Cause I thought he was no longer working for the city under contract, so that line item was removed. So when was it put back?
I reinstituted it, excuse me, a couple of weeks ago. I made the change with code enforcement. You know, like I said, we do have a lot going on. I was not a part of the budget where it was taken out. I was not aware that it was taken out. But I feel like that it's, you know, best for us to move on with some of that right now without expending a lot of extra money for an additional full-time employee.
We've got to keep up too. We can't get behind.
And also you mentioned about sending out letters to landlords, that policies and stuff was going to change. When is that going to take place?
Well, I was asked to include that as part of a work session when we had that, so that has not been done yet. So that's one of the topics that we will take up when we have a work session.
So it'll be important for everybody to really think about times, you know, because we'll probably have to, if everybody sends times that they think's good, maybe we'll come up with some that work for everybody. Oftentimes when Joey sends out stuff to us, asking when we can do this or ask for information, we don't respond. And so this will be a good time for us to respond and try to get that together. So give that some thought as you look over your calendars for the next few months. Okay. All right. Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor. I did include the financials in your package for the month of August. This covers just the first 2 months of operation of the city for July and August. Very similar to previous year. We really don't have any very big changes. As you can see in the general fund, our income for the first 2 months was just over 1.1 million. And just as a kind of a gauge, our expense for every month runs about 850,000 a month. So, you know, this is the time of year that we're always significantly behind on our general fund budget. As you see, we did hit about 10.9% of our budget, where if we were on, you know, even months, if we were to do it very evenly through the year, we would be at 16 and 16.7%. So we are a little bit behind there, but we also did correspondingly slow down the general fund purchases and, you know, expenses on the general side. So overall, we have a $258,000 loss for the first 2 months on the general fund. Very typical of this part of the year, especially when the majority, you know, just in 2 of our things that come in at the end of the year that we don't even get them till June. But things are looking, they're staying on plan as I expected it to. Utility fund side, we are a little bit ahead on our revenue. Once again, if we were even throughout the whole year, we'd be at 16.7%. Revenue for the utility fund through the end of August was 19.6. This was pretty much fueled by, you know, the hot months of July and August with the very extremely hot days that we did have and the electric revenue. This corresponds to about just over $1 million in revenue, but this, once again, this is the period where we build up. October, when we come into October, this is what we call our shoulder months, where we flip and we don't have enough revenue coming in to cover operations. So this is kind of evening out that cycle. But other than that, everything else is staying according to plan. We are still operating under a, only expenditure if it's absolutely necessary. No big no big expenditures are going out as of this point, until we get into a better cash flow position. So, any other questions you have on the financials?
Thank you, Carl. I appreciate what y'all are doing and keeping us in that, eating the microphone here, sorry. But keeping, it's a balance to go through the shoulder months and times when we make more and when we make less to keep our city operating. So I thank you and your staff for what y'all do to keep us running in a very efficient manner. Questions or comments? I know.
So those months, the months that you says typically we're slow and we're behind or we're short in receiving, what do we do? Because if we know that this is something that's every year, this is during this period of time, what are we doing to cut spending? What are we doing to during this time of the month, during this time that we're short?
Well, we're not acting on any of our capital plans. Where, if it's out of the ordinary spending, we are trying to cut that back. So we're not, I'm just trying to keep every penny in the bank that I can at this point in time. There's really not a whole lot I can do since I've been here, since I was hired in September of 23. This is my kind of third fall here, and this process has happened every single year. And where a lot of what's happening now is up front in this time of year is the utility fund actually props up the general fund for what we're short on. So it puts more of a strain on the utility fund during this period. And then as we get along into January, February, March, when our property taxes and our business licenses start coming in, then the general fund will start paying the utility fund back. But that hampers us in a lot of ways where I don't have, if we needed a new vehicle on the utility fund side, that was a requirement. I don't have that to do unless I take loans out, which is what we're trying not to do. So, there's not a whole lot I can do at this point. This is our typical cycle that we have gone through every single year. The one thing that will get us out and help us more is when we build up our property values and we have more businesses here. That's the one thing that would help us build our reserves up. So my goal is hopefully in 5 years, once we have, hopefully the ballpark gets finished out, we have, a lot of commercial businesses coming in here that are helping the city at that point, then we can start building up our reserves where the general fund can actually fall back on the reserves when they need it during the fall, and then build it back up in the spring when the cash comes in. So, but at this point, we don't have a big enough tax base and we don't have a big enough business base to really do that. So we will continue to operate on what we bring in and, stay within those bounds.
So have we received any funding back from FEMA?
Yes, we have. We have received about $46,000. That was another thing that was on my list to talk about. Our annual audit, that kicks off on the 20th of this month. So I expect to have audit reports at our December meeting, if all goes well. FEMA, just met with our new program manager last week on Friday, and we are finishing out all the rest of the filings. So our debris, emergency management, the electrical system, and a few other smaller projects will be finished out, and our plan is to finish those out by Thanksgiving so that we will hopefully be in a funding position by early next year.
So we have received, you said 46.
46,000, yes.
And that's include what we received before, right? Because we have received some before, prior, right?
No, we have not. That was our first funding that just came. They have been submitted. Those projects were submitted 2 or 3 months ago. You know, they were the small, easy ones that we can knock out quick. But I expect that when we submit our electrical project, that will be one that gets a lot of review. It's also our biggest. It's probably going to be in the neighborhoods of $1.5 million to $2 million.
Okay.
So, you know, those are things that they will take time, but they are coming along.
Okay, can we get any update on the police fire department across the street? What kind of update do we have on that?
Things are going very well there. We're looking at, by the end of the month, being able to move in. They're bringing painters back, with final coat of paint on. They've got a little flooring they've got to finish. They've got a window in the clerk of court's office, the window that she uses to talk to customers. And so they've got to finish that up. And then we'll go through a punch list and walk through the building and see what we see that needs to be addressed. And we'll go from there. There's still some door hardware that needs to come. It was, I think, maybe supposed to be here last Friday. So that needs to be installed on the front doors and a couple other areas that some hardware needs to be taken care of. But everything's going along well, and I certainly hope by the end of the month we get this project wrapped up and we can start moving.
So is there a certain time, is council allowed to go over to?
Sure.
To look at.
Anytime you'd like to go over, let me know. We'll go over and take a walk through the building. You will not recognize it. It's, they've done a really good job. And so it's something that you all can be proud of when it's complete.
And then the rec center.
Rec center is moving forward. Of course, you know, moving dirt, putting in sprinkler system and digging fence post holes right now is a little slower because of some rain we've had over the last couple of weeks. They installed some sidewalks. They were getting, when we were out there last Wednesday, they were getting ready to put down some gravel for the roadways to be paved going forward. And the infills are down. Just finishing touches on that also. Once they get the irrigation system in, fence will go up, the batting cage will be installed, the dugouts will be installed on each of the fields.
They've already got the concrete poured on those dugouts and all those.
And so, once all that's done, they will come in and put the side down, and we just wait for it to mature before we can use it next spring. It's going well.
It might be easier to schedule for you a time when all of us could go tour at once, so you're not giving 7 different tours
That'd be good.
of the fire station.
Yeah.
If that's, I mean, I'm just trying to, I'm thinking if all of us schedule a different time, it might be a good
Well,
field trip, like Charlie recommended.
Most of you still work at some point or another, whether it's taking care of grandkids or other things. But yeah, I don't mind doing it at any time. If there's 2 or 3 of them that want to get together at one time, you all can talk and let me know, and we will schedule that up.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, Mr. Cook, anything?
No, I just would like to emphasize, I do think we need at least one very strong and good work session before the holidays crank up. So whatever we need to do to start that process, or Mr. Manager, if he wants to send an email asking us to submit dates back so he can do that, because I really do think we've heard some good stuff tonight and would be very helpful to keep it while it's fresh on our minds moving forward in regards to that. And then also, whether it's the city or Main Street or whomever, maybe at our November stated session, not stated session meeting, but stated council meeting, we understand what our holiday plans are and what's going on when, and that kind of stuff, so we're all fully informed of all the holiday activities.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Ms. Williams.
Don't have anything other than to thank city officials for everything that they have and are doing. Our fire department, our police department, we have had several things going on within the city, so we do thank the police department for their diligence and support, and we just need to keep one another in the city of Clinton in prayer. We're going through some things. We being a little small town that we are experiencing, maybe not in your area, but throughout the city of Clinton. There are from murders to break-ins to accidents, and if you haven't experienced it or not in your, consider yourself blessed, but just know that your neighbors are possibly going through as well. So with going through the holidays, ask everyone to please be vigilant of where you are and what you're doing, especially females, but as well as male, to be aware of your surroundings. When you're out and when you see something, say something. It's so important. We're still dealing with some loose animals in the area. So we still got a lot to deal with that as well. But again, when we see it, report it, call it in. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Cogswell.
No report.
Mr. Kirkendall.
With all the infrastructure work that's been going on, down through our streets and all, where we are with that, 'cause
We should be getting very close to
looks like it.
the end. I know that they're talking about where they're going to be repaving West Main Street and the areas that were
Dug up pretty good.
dug up,
Yeah.
and so those will be taken care of very soon.
So the big old metal plates will eventually be taken back there.
Yes, sir. Those will be taken up, and
Okay.
they will come in and repave those areas right there. And there's other areas throughout town, on the northeast side of town that we did this work in. They'll come back and patch those holes. And
It looks like the old Jim Adair building, where our beautiful mural has been painted just very recently. There's some brick holes there now, and I thought maybe if somebody could hit it with a car or something, but there's a hole there.
all right, I will get our code enforcement.
And it looks like you
officer
can
taken
see
care of it,
into
because
the
that will-
basement area.
Of course, that will be the responsibility of the
Oh,
property owner
yeah.
to fix, but I will get.
I have called someone that was connected to the property owner to report it, but haven't heard back from him. But in that one, where we've got the wood in front of the hole in the building, if we could get,
We are working on through that, on some plans possibly through CEDC that I can't divulge right
Okay.
at this moment, but there are some things, hopefully in progress that you will see very soon.
thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Just want to quickly congratulate Thornwell. They celebrated their 150th anniversary Friday night. Probably nobody in here, nobody watching this, if anybody still is, hasn't been affected by the work they do. They're a respected name throughout our state and throughout Florida and Georgia as well. So have done a lot of good work for kids and families and parents, made a big difference in our community. And I'm personally proud of the work that they do and want to celebrate their 150th with them.
Very good.
Thank you.
May I add also that Clinton Tire celebrated 50 years of business, which I think is very important as well. They've been a big service to the public for many years.
Absolutely. Ms. Wallace. Okay. All right. Just want to thank everybody for your good consideration of everything we're doing. Don't forget to, when Joey sends out, to respond so we can put together some dates for this workshop and start putting these plans together. And if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion from Ms. Walsh, second from Mr. Smith. If there are no questions,